brothers and sisters in Christ. I'm probably going to say a word that many people might consider a bad word. And I'm saying it right here as I'm standing at the altar. It's like doubly bad for me to say it. And the word that I'm going to say, Budyo. Maybe I'll translate that for some of you who don't understand. It's a bad word. General body. Can't believe he said that. You know, okay, I guess that's actually two words in that sense. Sorry, it's a two words phrase. But you're right. Why is that, I wonder, considered a bad word? What's the reaction that comes in your mind when I say those two words?
Fight.
Fight? Oh man, that goes there. Spot on. That's good. Someone said fight. Disagreement. You know, it's interesting because the term, you know, I think in Malayalam, the Podiyogam is the, like, Podavaya Yogam, right? What's Yogam? Coming together, right? So it's like a, you know, it's even such a negative term that when we say it, people run away. They're like, oh, you know, when we had one not last time, you know, before, you guys are familiar whenever we had meetings to elect new office bearers for the new year. I think that meeting, many of you know, like our committee has about, if I'm remembering correctly, 15 or 16 people on the committee. And I think that day in the sanctuary for the meeting to select new office bearers, there was about 4 people. There's no way that 4 people are going to be able to make up a committee of 17 or 16 or 17 people. So we said, okay, we have to look at other issues, and then we'll come back to the general body, the elections later. And we even have to do it in such a way that we did it right after Kurbana, because we're like, that's the only way we're going to be able to get the Bodhavaya Yogyam of this party together, right? Almost holding you hostage even, you know? Next, I don't know what's going to happen next time. Maybe we're to do it like right here, middle of Kurbana. Let's talk right now and do an election for next year right now. I don't know. Because so many of us have such a bad taste in our mouths when even we say the word Pudiyogam. It's like, just a little chill when I said it. I think it was a fan, but I got chill when I said it. But, you know, we have such a negative thoughts come to our mind when we say that word. Even got to a point where, you know, when I was at St. James, we didn't even call it general body, because so many people had like, oh, I don't like that word. So we called it the parish assembly. We called it the parish assembly meeting, just so that the word general body makes such a negative connotation in your you know, gives you a bad taste in your mouth. And the reason that many of you said it, why? Because the thing that we associate with most is either going to be fighting. So for the two main reasons people avoid it in general, either one is because they're like, oh, there's going to be some fighting. But definitely in the last few years, we haven't had any fighting in this church during Pudiyogams. But then other things is like, oh, maybe, what if they ask me to do something? What if, you know, because now that's just like, oh, I need some volunteers. What does everybody do? If our eyes don't meet, he won't select me. Because that's just looking it out. Is someone looking at me? Can I meet my eyes with somebody else's eyes so that I can select them? Nope, they're all looking down. All of a sudden, you know, ധ്യാനിക്കാൻ തോന്നുന്നില്ല. കണ്ണടച്ച് ധ്യാനിക്കാൻ പോകാം. ആദ്യമായിട്ട് പള്ളി കണ്ണടച്ച് ധ്യാനിക്കുന്നത്. The first time. They never do that anywhere else. The first Achan says, I need help, I need some volunteers. Oh, you then. Now is the time I really want to pray. I'm praying that he doesn't look at me. Because, you know, for some reason we have this avoidance of taking on and responsibility in the church. Because for us, you know, we have such a negative connotation, negative things. And it's true though. The reason is because I know we've all had bad experiences with it. We've all had bad experiences. There's a reason why when I said, what are the words, what are the thoughts come to your mind when I say John Body, Pudiyogam, these thoughts come to your mind. Because we've all been there, we've all seen things, we've all experienced things. But, you know, part of being in this yogium, I don't even know if you use the word correctly, I think it's the right word, you can correct me if I'm wrong. part of being in this group, this group that comes together, this assembly, is that we think as one mind, as in one accord. You know, the epistle that was read today on this side was taken from 1 Peter chapter 3. And in it, you know, Peter really stresses this idea about having one accord, being of one mind. All of you be of one mind, having compassion for one another. Love as brothers, be tender-hearted, be courteous. Do not return evil for evil or reviling for reviling, but on the contrary, blessing, knowing that you were called for this, that you may inherit a blessing. Because the St. Peter continues to say, who's going to harm you if you become followers of what is good? If you should suffer for righteousness, you are blessed. You are blessed if you suffer for righteousness. It's true that sometimes we don't want to take on certain responsibilities in the church. But if something has to get done, you know, we say that, you know, why is it that when Paul talks about what we read over here on this side, you know, we have the body that has many members. And you may have heard me say this many times. The body has to have a head. So who's the head of the body? Who's the head of the church body? Christ himself. But Christ is the head. And the head sends the directions, the head sets the will, the head sets the vision. But after that, it's the rest of the body that has to do the work. It's the hands that have to hold things, to lend a helping hand. It's the feet that actually have to take that body places, from place to place, to be able to do the work. It's the other parts of the body that have their own functions. But it's the work of the body has to be done by all the different parts, but they come together so that they work for the benefit of the entire body. Under the leadership of that head, which is Christ our God, who has given us a vision and direction of what he wants us and how he wants us to live. Specifically, even as he speaks through the apostles, being of one mind, having compassion for one another. So there's some people who completely avoid these meetings and avoid responsibility because they're like, I'm afraid of fighting, or because I'm afraid that someone, if I do something, if I step up for a role, especially for the young people who've never led before, who've never taken on a position of leadership, they want to serve. I don't think anyone here doesn't have a heart of service in them. We all want to do something. We all want to serve. We all want to serve the church. We want to serve God. We want to find ways of coming close to God through our efforts of service. That idea of serving one another is actually ingrained in us. It's one of the few things, it's one of the many things that sets us apart from all other creation. This idea of serving one another, this idea of working cooperatively. There aren't that many other, you know, animals or living creatures in creation that do that. And so some of us are afraid of that responsibility because they're like, especially like I said, the young people, because then if they step up to do something, someone is going to say, oh, you don't know what you're doing. Or why did you do it this way? They start attacking them. But our job here is to nurture one another, love one another, be tender-hearted, be courteous, having compassion for one another, appreciating especially someone who's deciding to take on leadership, taking on a role to help when no one else will. So what they deserve then is our appreciation, not our condemnation. Is our support and our love, not our derision and our backbiting and our back-talking. And most importantly, what they deserve is our prayers. Is our prayers. And there are lots of people, you know, there are this idea that people are like, you've heard all the time, and I'm sure, you know, I know for sure that we're all aware of it because it's all on all the social media and everything, like transfer this and transfer that and transfer this, all this, especially when it comes to utterance transfers. Well, the church, having issues with your priest is not a new thing; it's an old thing. It goes back to the very beginning. As soon as someone was given authority over somebody else, the people who are, you know, there have always been that tension between those who have been given a certain amount of authority and then those who have to be led, those whom that authority has to be exercised over. But it's not in a sense that, you know, the priesthood are masters and the people are followers. It's not like that. A priest understands his role is to serve the people. That we are here to serve. But then what the priest deserves then is also what we all talked about here, right? Is compassion, is love, and most importantly is prayers. And one of the church fathers even say, if you have trouble, or if you want to make your priest better, if you want a better priest, is better way to say it. If you want a better priest, it's not to get a new one. You pray for the one you have. You pray for the one you have. If I want anything better in this world, there's even a story that I was told a long time ago about a young woman who wanted to pray for her mother-in-law, because I think I said this before, right? She wanted to pray for her mother-in-law because they didn't get along very well. And she'd always say, oh, God, help my mother-in-law, make her better, make her nicer, make her this, make her that. And she goes and talks to her spiritual father, and the spiritual father's like, well, instead of trying to change these attributes of your mother, or your mother-in-law, instead of saying, oh, make her better at this, make her better at that, make her less argumentative, make her love me more. Instead of saying all those things, he's like, why don't you say, I want to pray for my mother-in-law. Just pray for her. Not pray for her attributes to change, not pray for her to become a better person or this and that. Just pray for her. God bless this person. May your mercy be upon this person. May you take away all pain from this person, all difficulties. Pray for the person. And this is true for anybody who's in leadership, anybody who's even not in leadership. Pray for one another. Here, they didn't make any distinction here about that. St. Peter's saying, compassion for one another as brothers and sisters. Pray for one another. So when we hear this word of general body, of Budiogams, and all this stuff, instead of having, the bad taste in the back of your mouth, find ways of being able to serve. The model that Christ gave us is very similar. He wasn't, today we read from the Gospel of St. Luke, and it's the account of the woman who was crippled for 18 years. And for many years she was crippled, and she goes to get healing in the temple. And of course, what happens in the temple, Christ goes and heals her, and of course what happens in the temple, they get mad. The leaders of the temple, they get mad. They want to ostracize both Christ and this woman. They want to kick her out. Why? Because of all things, she came to get healing on the Sabbath. And Christ, during a general meeting, if someone says something to you that you don't like, it might even be you might feel like they're personally attacking you. Instead of personally attacking one another, look at the substance of what someone's trying to say. Christ doesn't get personally offended here. He doesn't, go to the defense of the woman and then get offended or anything. He tries to, as a good teacher, instructs the Pharisees, and he says, which one of you who has an animal like a donkey or something, that wouldn't you go untie it to go lead it to water? This person is a child of Abraham who is much more deserving of healing. So then there's nothing wrong with, yes, she should have been resting at home on the Sabbath, but she came seeking God. There's nothing wrong with that. So rather than accusing her of breaking the law, rather than accusing her of not respecting the Sabbath, not honoring the Sabbath, they should be rejoicing at the miracle that just happened in front of them. Because imagine what just happened. A woman who was crippled for 18 years is finally made straight, is finally healed from her infirmity, and all they can focus on is he did something on the Sabbath. Not even the fact that she was healed. And that's where some of us are. Oftentimes, someone might have a great idea in one of these meetings, and because we don't like them personally, we don't like their idea. It's not that the idea was bad, it's the person I don't like them. They looked at me weird one day. So all of a sudden we're enemies for life. So anything they say is automatically evil. Rather than listening to the substance of what people have to say, we look at the person and judge their ideas based on our dislike of the person. And that's not at all what we're called to do. There's no compassion there. There's no having one mind there. There's no love of your brother or sister there. If someone does something wrong, we definitely should stand up against them. We definitely should speak out when someone does something wrong, rather than keeping it to ourselves. But there's a way and a manner to do that. Not about humiliation, not about arguing, not about trying to not about trying to step on somebody else and push them down. But we correct through love. Christ here there are times where Christ calls other people hypocrites and says words that seem kind of harsh. But in his authority as a teacher, he does that. But there are also times where he's actually trying to explain something. Not calling them hypocrites, but actually saying, look, this person is much more deserving than just a simple donkey. And she's not here to do any kind of work. She's not here to break this habit. She's here, she's fine. She came to approach God to seek healing. We all have different ways that we also want to approach God through our service, whether it's service in the church, whether it's taking a position or an office or something like that. But the thing is, we have to understand this is our church. We are all part of this body. So sometimes when we need help, we need the members of the body, we need the hands and the feet and the heart and all the different parts of the body to help out to do all those different things. Not to have in our minds, oh, somebody else will take care of it. I'm not going to go to the meeting today because somebody else is going to take care of it. Because then we are doing a disservice to the body of Christ. Yes, we are supposed to pray. Yes, we're supposed to do all those spiritual things that we need to do. Yes, we're supposed to be reading scripture. Yes, we're supposed to be following all the fasts. But those are all personal things that we do for our personal spirituality. But then beyond that, there's also a communal responsibility that we have for the entire body. Then so think about it. Am I doing my part to help this body? Whether there's something as small as like picking up a small piece of trash we see out there, or whether it's, holding our tongue, holding back those negative words, and actually trying to listen to the substance that someone has to say, rather than automatically dismissing them because I don't like that person. To say I don't like a person in this body, in this yogium, that's the word. To say I don't like that person, saying I don't like a part of my body. It doesn't make sense. We're all in this together. We're all serving the same God. We all want to have that same great relationship with Him. But you can't have that relationship with Him if we don't have that relationship with one another as well. And so hopefully, I ask and I urge you, as Christ here is showing us, there are much bigger things for us to worry about. Not to focus on the fact, just like these Pharisees, they missed the fact that she came. They focused only on the fact that she came on the Sabbath. They focused only on the fact that she came on the Sabbath to get healing, but completely missed the miracle that happened in front of them. Let's focus on the things that we're supposed to focus on. Hold our tongues on things that don't matter. And really focus on building that relationship with one another. As Christ is always the model and the head of His church, let's do and follow the example that He has set for us. All praise, honor, glory, and worship blessed Trinity, Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, now and always and forever.